Hey, Iyo.
And one of the things in question now is the question of whether this trial, this impeachment trial, will push through. Again, talking about, we're not going to talk about I guess, the case itself as much. We'll focus more on like the process.
Sure.
Right. Can you give us light as to what the Supreme Court decision was? Because I'm sure not a lot of people have read the decision, or maybe not a lot
I
of people
myself
seen.
have not finished reading the 97-page document,
Okay.
but like
No
I
problem, no
have
problem.
like I'm with a group that's been studying it. Right?
No problem. I don't blame you. It's 97 pages.
And it's
But yeah,
it's Justice Leonin. I mean, whatever you think of him right now, he does have a reputation for being quite flowery with his language.
Oh my gosh.
So, like, I mean,
but ikaw, so like, parang if you to give like a brief description of what happened, what would you say?
Okay, it's gonna be hard to be brief because like I'm kind of it's kind of been intimately part of my life for the last like 8 months.
Oh
or
my
so,
gosh,
right?
I can imagine.
So I know we don't want to talk about the case, right? But I think just to start from starting where I'm coming from, right? In November of 2024, like I believe it was a couple of days before Lolo Ninoy's birthday. Sara Duterte does her midnight press conference where she says that she hired an assassin to kill 3 of my favorite people, BBM Lisa Araneta and Martin Romualdez, right? If something were to happen to her. And my initial reaction to that was, oh, wow, a death tack. Neat. Buy one, take one, right? But then it was actually my dad who said, oh, what do you think will happen? And I was like, oh, this does mean she's impeachable now. Or that this means, because for context, like, the Quadcom hearings in the lower house had been happening for a while up to that point, right? And a lot of like, this is where Mary Grace Piatos came from. Suppose there's some person named Mary Grace Piatos who received the confidential and intelligence funds. I forget if this particular one was from OVP or from DepEd, but this person received it. Turns out there's no such Mary Grace Piatos in the Philippine Statistics Authority. Big surprise there, right? So these things had been leading up, right? And the idea of impeaching Sara Duterte had been floated, but I had always thought that given how popular she was, this was a pipe dream, right? This is this is just a pipe dream of the people who were opposed to her, right? When the not to say that these things aren't impeachable, right? Mary Grace Piatos is, I think, a really stark example of impunity when it comes to corruption. I can get away with this, and I can call like my fake names whatever I want, whatever they want. So impeachable, but in terms of the politics, pipe dream because of how popular VP Sara was. Then the November thing happened, right? The press con and the threats happened, and all of a sudden it popped in my head. It was like, yeah, if she really needs to be impeached now, right? If she is making threats like that in public, right? One aspect of it is not just you can't threaten any Filipino that way, right?
Yeah.
Another aspect of it is you're threatening the head of state. Well, again, not my favorite person, farthest from my favorite person, but you're threatening assassination to the president of the Philippines, right? And in what country is that acceptable for anyone to do, much less the vice president? And that's kind of it dawned on me recently that what VP Sara did was just so effed up, right? That we were the talk of the town of the world for like a week because of what she did.
I remember
right?
that.
And interestingly, that didn't happen when her father was arrested, right? Parang ICC happened. I thought all of these podcasts that I listened to were gonna start talking about this again. Nothing. Maybe it was because like Trump was doing weird stuff with tariffs, or I don't know if that coincided with some escalation in Israel. I forget what was, not to make light of it, but I just genuinely don't remember what was going on at the time. But just on paper, like we were the talk of the town when Sara threatened our head of state. Or Sara made like when VP Sara went crazy, right? So to me, it's like, okay, this is clearly impeachable. This is clearly impeachable.
Yeah.
A couple of days later, some people I worked with sa Tindig Pilipinas were I got wind that they were working on putting together an impeachment complaint, right? Maybe not even a couple of days later, just like very soon after, I found out that this was being put together, and they were asked if I was interested in signing on as a complainant. I thought about it for a little while, since in the end, I will still say that I dislike Bongbong Marcos more than I dislike Sara Duterte, right? But as a matter of citizenship, I thought, yeah, I think as a Filipino citizen, I sincerely believe that Sara Duterte, from her actions in November alone, did something impeachable. So we signed on. It took us some time to prepare the complaint. We eventually filed it December 2. Two complaints followed. December 5, I think, was the second complaint, and then the third complaint was December 18, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
House doesn't act. Ostensibly, the way they count session days are weird. So even if like it took them like if they finally acted on it February 5, they didn't act on the three. They didn't act on the three complaints until that point, but it didn't reach 10 session days because I don't know how many days in that 2-month period were actually session days. Right? So goes up to so that's February.
Yeah.
Senate sits on it the whole time. Chis Escudero says that we're not gonna hindi ako mamadaliin ng House of Representatives. And for the first week of that, I was like, okay, you're entitled to say that. The House took a little longer than I would have liked, right? So but two wrongs don't make a right. Hope you do it soon, right? What it says in the Constitution is when it's elevated to the Senate, trial shall proceed forthwith. Right? Then we find out that he won't act until after the election. Then he pushes it to after the SONA. It's like, okay, this is really bad, right? This is way too much of a delay. Compounded by the fact that the Senate had hearings during the recess when Duterte was arrested, right? Mm-hmm. So really bad, right? This is clearly not kosher as far as proceeding forthwith is concerned. Come July, what's the next flashpoint? We were supposed to start talking about it June 2 again. Chis Escudero delays it from June 2 to June 9.
Yeah.
And like a whole bunch of us were like, okay, enough is enough. We really need to act. So like we organized protests June 9, 10, 11 to just tell the Senate forthwith means forthwith. Forthwith means again, right away, now, right? Forthwith cannot be taken to mean 4 or 5 months, right?
Yeah.
So we did that. June 9, Chis Escudero swears in as presiding officer of the impeachment court. June 10, the whole Senate is sworn in, but they vote to
remand. I remember that.
Well, remand, but also serve the summons to VP Sara Duterte. Right? So remand, it's remanded to the House, summons for Sara Duterte. The House basically responds that, look, we complied with all of these concerns that you have. Right? They issued a resolution. Sara Duterte issues a response. I believe the term is ad cautelam. So like she responded to the summons, but questioning whether the Senate has legitimately has jurisdiction over her case. In the meantime, a little before that, in between February and June, Sara files in the Supreme Court a petition for, I don't know if it was certiorari or end prohibition, certiorari only, or certiorari and prohibition. I don't even know what those words mean necessarily, but basically saying that the Senate does not have jurisdiction. Arguing that the first three complaints, the first complaint was filed, that was not acted upon, therefore it was dismissed, and therefore she cannot be impeached for another whole year. Mm-hmm. Right. To my knowledge, and we are getting into the legalities now a little bit. To my knowledge, for the House to have been considered to act on an impeachment complaint, initial action, I think is the term, it has to start, they have to do something as a plenary. It can't just be the action of one particular member of the House that endorsed the complaint, or the House Secretary General who's not even elected. Right? Okay. It has to be the House that acts. Right? And the only thing the House acted on was the complaint they elevated in February 4, the one that was it 215 members of Congress ended up signing, the one that Sandro Marcos was the first signatory of. So when the Supreme Court decision came out in February favoring Sara Duterte, saying that, because the House effectively dismissed those first three cases, then the 1 year rule that prevents more than one impeachment complaint being more than one impeachment proceeding against an impeachable official, the same impeachable official, from pushing through within 1 year. Yeah. So you can't impeach someone more than once a year. Basically, there's a constitutional rule like that. They said that was violated because there are these three complaints that are effectively dismissed. There's a fourth complaint that violates the 1 year rule, right? Which contradicts the established definition for when impeachment proceedings start, which is when the House as a plenary acts on it. Right?
Okay.
So that's the change. That's what the Supreme Court did. They changed the rule, applied it to this case, and so they said that Sara cannot. They say that Sara cannot be impeached again until February 6 next year, which I also have a question about, because if the first time she was impeached was indeed December 2, shouldn't we be able to impeach her December 2? But anyway, that's not a lawyer. I don't know. Right? So my feeling of all of this, without getting into the weeds of it, because I'm not a lawyer, and a lot of people are saying if you criticize the Supreme Court too much, you'll get sued or whatever. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm not a lawyer. They can't disbar me, but I want to be safe. My feeling is that what's happened is it's become harder to hold our impeachable officials accountable, right? Because what they're saying, if we follow their argument, is that any impeachment proceeding, or any time a citizen or a congressman files an impeachment complaint, that's it for a year, right? And why is that problematic, right? It's problematic because this is something we saw under GMA, where not only would she get people to file an impeachment complaint against her that's particularly weak and then have it junked by the House Committee on Justice, right? So parang she would file a complaint against her, let it elevate to the House Committee on Justice. Committee on Justice acting as on behalf of the plenary junks the complaint, right? Then boom, can't impeach her again for another year. Right? Now, any person can file a weak impeachment complaint against VP Sara, and then all of a sudden she's immune again for another year, right? Mabuti sana, right? So I mean, on the other hand, if I'm going to be generous to the Supreme Court, one way to interpret what they're saying is like, okay, it compels the House to act on an impeachment complaint. Because I will say, I'm a bit frustrated that there wasn't faster action on the one we filed in December. Right?
So parang if a new case is filed, agad-agad dapat.
Right.
House.
That's kind of, the decision doesn't exactly say that, but if you're the House, if you think that, okay, if I ignore it, that's effectively dismissing it. I actually want to impeach this person, then I have to act. Right?
Yeah.
Or if the House doesn't want to act, then parang it's useless for a citizen to file an impeachment, right?
Yeah.
So there's a very, very edge case where, like, okay, if I really believe that Sara Duterte should be impeached, and I do believe she should be impeached, then I need to be the first one to file the impeachment complaint.
Yeah.
And I need to be damn sure that the House will sign on to that complaint.
Yes.
Because if they don't, they're gonna dismiss it. They're gonna effectively dismiss it without acting on it at all. And if I'm not first, someone else might do it, and it might end up protecting Sara Duterte. Yeah. So in the end, while there might be, it does address some things that the House does improperly, but the by and large effect of this is that it is harder to hold our impeachable officials accountable.
Oh yeah.
And that's not just the president and the vice president. That is the members of the different constitutional commissions, and especially the members of our Supreme Court. Right?
Yeah.
So it's not. I don't think it's good. Right? I don't think it's good. Right? Trying to give the benefit of the doubt that yes, there is some. I'm not saying that the House is completely. I don't know if under the previous definition of impeachment, I don't know if they were legally sound or not. The sense I get is they were. Mm-hmm. I will say that as a complainant, I do wish they had acted on my complaint sooner. And if the House is being called out on that, sure, they deserve to be called out on that. But I don't understand why letting Sara off the hook is a remedy for the House not acting sooner on her impeachment complaint. Shouldn't the remedy be the House should have acted or the Senate should have acted?
Yeah.
Like so for me, it's like it's so I'm like really frustrated as a complainant because due to no fault of my own, we were the first to file, right?
Yeah.
So we didn't
You were the
file
first,
among
yeah.
them. We didn't file the second or third complaint. We were the first to file, right? It is not my fault that the House took however long. It is not my fault the Senate didn't choose to act forthwith.
Yeah.
It is, and all of these things that the Supreme Court accuses the House of doing or not doing, which apparently is not even entirely accurate if you listen to Justice Carpio, because there are certain facts that the Supreme Court decision didn't seem to take count of, right? But assuming even that the House did these things that the or failed to do these things that the Supreme Court says they did or failed to do, it's not my fault that those happened, and yet my complaint is like ignored.
Yeah.
Right? So it's so. I'm tired. I'm frustrated. I'm angry, and all of these things. And so, that's how I feel.
Gosh,
it's tempting to like get into the weeds of the legality, but also how much like are you drawing attention away from Sara? So it's like it's been really like communicating it is. There's just so much to talk about, and I just kind of went, all right, here's everything anchored on how I feel about it, which is I'm angry, I'm frustrated, I'm cranky, and I am quite tired.
Quite tired. And I don't blame you because you, as you were mentioning earlier, and you answered the question I had also written down. But I mean, it sets a precedent for how these officials are held to account. I mean, the president, the vice president, the heads of the constitutional commissions, members of the Supreme Court.
So the thing is, for me, it effectively kind of it really waters down the impeachment provisions in the Constitution, I think, because again, in the Constitution, it was put there, and this was a revision introduced in the not even a revision. This is a new element introduced in the 87 Constitution that citizens can initiate impeachment.
Yeah.
But given all of these like hoops that have now been introduced, what citizen in their right mind would initiate an impeachment complaint in the future, right? So the precedent it sets is kind of troubling, and not more than just kind of troubling, right? And it's frustrating because the 87 Constitution, which I and maybe you also are maybe a bit more attached to than the average Filipino, since like it's associated with for me, for Lola Cory, for the ideals that Lolo Ninoy fought for. The 87 Constitution was supposed to make it easier to hold these people accountable, not harder, right? And it's really ironic because like parang we've been thinking a lot about, and I think even Justice Leonen I don't know if he invokes it directly, but makes at least allusions to the Javeliana versus Executive Secretary decision that where the Supreme Court basically says, I forget if it was the declaration of martial law or the referendum on the 73 Constitution. But basically the Supreme Court says, this is kind of sus, but it's a political issue, we're hands off, right? Because of that, the Supreme Court was given expanded judicial review, which is for things that are traditionally thought of as political, you can still intervene in that. Okay. And that's what the Supreme Court did, right? They intervened in this thing, which previously is like considered like an exclusive domain of the legislature, right? And so in a way, sure, they did something that they were now allowed to do by the 87 Constitution. But in both cases, we're just, how are we going to hold these people accountable?
Yeah.
Right? In both of these cases, right? So, I think like you used your expanded judicial review, good for you, right? But on a topic that we were talking about before, did you throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? If accountability was the point of the 87 Constitution, did you throw that out to be able to say, oh look, we're the Supreme Court, we can do this now. Thank you, 1987 Constitution. Maybe that's a little too far. Don't sue me. But,
Hey there, thanks for watching the highlights of the Hey Eiyo podcast.
If you enjoyed, why don't you like this video and subscribe to my channel? You may also watch the full episode by clicking the clip in the middle.